everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey there.
Good morning.
Hi, this is Michelle from Brooklyn.
Monica is here from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
This is Jasmine from New Hampshire.
People, oh my goodness, from all over. We have Belgium, Spain, South Africa, China, Germany, Kosovo, Switzerland, Canada.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Judith Thompson, and I am here to be your host today for a conversation on healing divisions and embracing our common humanity. We've seen the rise of hate groups by 55%. There are now over 1,000. The conspiracy theory QAnon is now believed by over 20 million Americans. Anti-Semitism continues to rise side by side with Islamophobia in many Western nations. Add to these a global pandemic, ecosystem collapse, inflammatory rhetoric, which is disseminated instantly through social media, and we find ourselves in a perfect storm where people feel fearful and are uncertain about the future. And we know from history that these are the ingredients, a perfect setup for scapegoating, for violence, and even genocide. So today we're going to look through the lens of wounding and healing as a way to step back and try to understand the underlying hurts and grievances that lead to polarization, how they are exacerbated, and how they can also be healed. As the wise Cornel West has said, we are all wounded. The choice is whether we're going to be wounded healers or wounded wounders. Those who will be sharing with us today have already made that choice, and we have a great deal to learn from them as well as from each other.
We believe that we're the superior race. We were here first, and this is our country.
Look at me, I'm on the edge of the vanguard to save the white race.
Guns, ammo, steel-toed Doc Martens, tattooing. Violence was just prerequisite to enter or exit.
Life After Hate was founded by ex-neo-Nazi white supremacists, and they knew that they wanted to help other guys get out.
White supremacy wasn't just what I believed. It was who I was. It was what I listened to. It was what I watched. It was what I read. It was who I hung out with. But the main reason I got involved at the beginning was I got acceptance when I felt unlovable. I got power when I felt powerless. And I got attention when I felt invisible. And it's these deeper vulnerabilities which are born of toxic shame, which creates the vulnerabilities that these ideologies and these groups are very masterful at drawing in. And it's these deeper emotional reasons, that when I first started hanging out with skinheads, this middle class, I was a soft kid growing up. My parents were like, what are you doing? You can go and, I was in grade 12 at the time. You can go and do anything you want. You can go to university. You have this privileged life where you have every opportunity open to. Why are you hanging out with those guys? And the answer is they had the one thing that I didn't, and that was toughness. When I was getting beaten in Catholic school for not getting A's and B's because I was a underperforming smart kid, even to this day, the time after time after time I was in the teacher's office where I got hit on the rear end with a yardstick. I don't think I've ever felt more powerless in my life as I was in that office. When I was with these guys, people for the first time in my life were afraid of me. That was intoxicating. When I was with them, I felt powerful. And by the time I was in the depth of the white supremacist movement, I was completely cut off. I was operating from ego and intellect, and I had my ego so far I had my head so far up my ego, it wasn't funny. And then my first child, and I had another one 18 months later, born, and they taught me to love again. The beautiful thing about children is that they love us unconditionally, and it's a powerful love, because it's hard not to love them back. It wasn't until I met a mentor, coach doing personal development workshops that I learned the most about compassion. And it turned out, my first therapy session with him, I'm telling him I'm a neo-Nazi, and I was this and I was that, after much trepidation. And he starts smiling and laughing. Well, not laughing at me, but smiling at me. And I go, "What's so funny?" And he goes, "You know, I'm Jewish, right?" And this was a relationship that I'd had for a while, and was important to me. But that feeling of receiving compassion from someone who we don't deserve it from is an incredibly powerful information. And I remember crying in that session, and he looked at me and he goes, "Look, that's what you did. That's not who you are."
I wanted to reflect on what Tony said, because one of our participants in the dialogue group was a psychiatrist who told us when he was a child, there was a book that was written. It was like the Dr. Spock book, and by a woman doctor who wanted the intention was to break the will of the child. She admired Hitler greatly. And what he said is he was locked in basements, he was beaten. If he was afraid of something, he was given more of the thing that he would be afraid of. And he was just a lost little person. Talk about toxic shame. And he said when Hitler told them how wonderful they were, the Aryan race, he said, that was the father that I never had and I followed. I'm here, Tony, this might connect to you as well. I'm here because of one angel in Auschwitz who kept my mother from committing suicide. She had been from a very religious, her father was a rabbi, a good family. She used to say, "What did I do to be in hell? Why was I sent to hell? Is there really a God?" At any rate, she was starving, and she left her city of Lodz with one surviving sister. Her family had been taken to Chelmo and gassed. Her mother and the four other children. Her father had died of starvation, so the kids could live. And they went there, and she took her little sister to the wires to get electrocuted. And a man on the other side, whose name we'll never know, told her, "Stop, what are you doing? You're going to die." And she said, "I want to die." He said, No, wait, I'll give you cigarettes, trade this for food, I'll meet you here, come back. And this angel, in Judaism, an angel is a malach. It is not an angel with wings exactly, but we can see it that way. But it's a messenger. The word means messenger. And this person can come into your life and give you something special just at the time you need it, whether it be your child or a psychologist or just someone. And this was the man that saved her, and therefore I'm alive.
We planted trees along the Underground Railroad, starting in Alabama and Georgia. And we did a ceremonial planting at one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad in Canada. And there was a question in my mind. It's like, the questions that come. The question was, when I woke, what about the Confederate soldier? And I said, and then you start to talk back to the Confederate soldier. The question was just, what about what about them? And the question was persistent. What about the Confederate soldier? Are you not planting trees for them? This is not about them. This is about you. If you are who you say you are trying to become, and you might not be there yet, but if you are who you say you're trying to become, then what about the Confederate soldier? And I took a deep breath and I sat with it, and I then went to my husband and I said, "Look, I have to go visit the Confederate cemetery." because there's this question that's come. And I took one of the trees that we had not planted at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and I took a taxi to the Confederate cemetery in Selma. And I was really afraid. But I felt like, well, Didan had said, okay, you go do that. That's not. And because because the Confederate flags were everywhere, and I thought, here's an African-American woman, maybe they're gonna think I'm here to do some harm. And when you walk in, it says, there's glory in the grave. There's glory in the grave. And I just felt that I needed to walk, and why am I here? And I ended up walking and looking, and I looked down, and I calculated the birth and death on the tombstone, and I realized that I was standing at the foot of I think he was 16-year-old child or 15-year-old child, and I had never thought of Confederate soldiers as children, and sitting and being quiet and feeling, where does this work go? This gathering is kind of culminating in the sense that it's given me greater clarity, because I realized that rather than planting trees for the Confederate soldiers, I need to be planting trees with the Confederate soldiers. That's the deepening and expanding of the dialogue.
And I believe that the challenges that we're given are the path that we need to take in order to give to others and elevate. The fact that, you go through being a neo-Nazi and you have a vision, and now you're helping others. I'm a child of survivors. Who knew I'd be talking with the children of Nazis and creating an organization? That pain in me had to be given meaning and transformed.
That anger, that propensity to violence, the dehumanization, that exists on the extremes of both the left and the right. It's not exclusive to the right. And what we need to do is not get sucked into that battle between the same things. They're just polar opposites of the same thing. We need to transcend it. Toxic shame, and the difference between healthy shame and toxic shame is, healthy shame is, I did bad. Toxic shame is, I am bad. And it's there burning like an ember 24/7 in our subconscious identity. If toxic shame is the alienation of the self, it's the disconnection from our own humanity, then we have to look at what is the cure for that. When we look at what intuitively people or organizations are doing to fight right-wing extremism, white supremacy and such, they heap more shame on, right? The idea is to shame people. And if shame is at the source of the problem, shame can't be part of the solution. And I'm not talking about holding people accountable in a healthy way, but the more vicious shaming. So the question is, if that is at the core of the problem, what is the antidote to shame? And the answer to that is compassion. There's three components for me for radical compassion. Number one is our practice of compassion must take us outside our comfort zone. I think to solve the problems of the day and to overcome the obstacles, it's not going to happen from inside our comfort zone. We must extend our practice of compassion to people that we don't feel comfortable being compassionate towards. Number two, it's not just about alleviating the suffering of another. It's also has a social activist element, so that the second component of radical compassion is changing the environment which supports or gives rise to the suffering in the first place. And number three, and I think this is the most important piece of radical compassion, is in order to truly be compassionate with others, we must mine it from ourselves. And when we take that journey inward and develop self-compassion, it exponentially increases our ability to be compassionate.
So what is never again? Never again, that word is to take action to transform, like Tony said he was doing, so that we can overcome with compassion and understanding and give something beautiful to the world.
I have personally witnessed seemingly miraculous transformations where what appear to be intractable otherness disappears and the joy of common humanity is truly felt and internalized as a new reality. Generally, this is the result of deep listening, non-judgment, compassion, and patience. It still amazes me how the simplest human capacities are so severely underutilized. It is not rocket science. That doesn't mean that the process of addressing polarization and extremism on a macro level isn't a complex, multi-layered process. It is. And yet, as the seasoned peace builder John Paul Lederach tells us, what we need is moral imagination, which he defines as the capacity to imagine something rooted in the challenges of the real world, yet capable of giving birth to that which does not yet exist.
The kindness they show and their commitment to removing barriers across the globe is awe-inspiring. Global Citizen Circle gives me hope when often nothing else or no one else can.
What do I love about Global Citizen Circle? There are a lot of things that I really love about you guys, but if I have to name a few, it's the opportunity to gather and to share and to learn from one another. The really global network that I found in Global Citizen Circle, and the warmth of the team that I get to work with very often.
There's so much I love about Global Citizen Circle. Finding myself in a community of humanitarians who share access to real-time stories of what's going on and come together in a spirit of collaborative problem solving.
I strongly love how the Global Citizen Cycle organization brings many people from different corners of the world together.
And people get time to share their expertise and experience and also learn from each other to make the world a better place.
Let's all take this small step together to make a better future for all time to come. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.